recently you were offered 35 million to be acquired.
It really shapes up your conviction. It really makes you fully understand what you're doing, the trajectory of what you're doing, and the confidence in what you're doing.
Was there ever a moment that you thought this is gonna fail?
Like probably countless numbers of times I've should have blown up. Like the fact that I'm just here and I'm not homeless is an achievement.
I understand the way you made this like more accessible with a lower barrier to entry was the introduction of AI pretty early on.
Yeah, our man CTO Slater, he was always on that cutting edge. He had that vision to sort of like see the impact of where it could go.
DAIN, Anisse. He's the co-founder of Relume, the website building platform powered by AI. We unpack what it means to scale a company from nothing to go toe-to-toe with big companies like Figma. Dan, what's up, man?
What's up? How you going?
Dude, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Dan.
And low-key fangirling. Our team here behind the scenes love Relume and what you've been able to create in the market. And it's just really exciting to see how you've scaled this thing so aggressively. And yeah, just keen to really dive in and better understand like how this all came about, man.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting journey. Love the fact that I always love hearing about people using Relume and loving it. So that's mad. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting journey how I arrived here, but it's been worth it every single minute.
Yeah, man. And we were talking before about how you were kind of cutting your teeth in like fashion. And you were talking about how you kind of looked at Zara and their fast fashion model and you were playing with that. And then we were kind of jiving on how fun it was to see people wearing something you designed. When I was 17, 18, 19, I worked in a retail shop selling merch and t-shirts, and it was like bad merch, really stupid like joke shirts that's like stupid one-liners like, I don't get drunk, I get ugly, or like just stupid stuff. So I would be at work like selling merch and folding shirts and printing stuff, and then I would have hours to kill where like no one was coming in the shop. And I asked my boss, like, what do I do when it's quiet? And she's like, just design stuff. And I remember designing a t-shirt that said train insane on it. And we'll get into the licensing another time. But we printed it and we sold thousands of them. And I remember being at the beach one day and just seeing people walking around and wearing my merch. And I was like, that's just fucking cool. They don't know who I am. Yeah. And here they are wearing my stuff. And low key, they're like, why are you staring at me? And I'm smiling at them for no reason, you know? But I just... Yeah, you were sharing how you kind of got kicks out of that. Like, so take me into the world of fashion and how you kind of...
I don't know how to explain and why. It's probably like one of the best feelings ever. Is that you've created something in your head, which could have been stupid, dumb, good, or whatever. You didn't know that. You never really were going to understand what the outcome was going to be. So then when you saw someone wearing it, it's like that validation. Yeah. Of approval. And then obviously if they didn't know you, that's even better because like you said, you looked at them like some weirdo going, they're just checking that person out wearing your t-shirt. But I think it's just always been curious about building shit, to be honest. I studied at uni, but it was business and I was more though, I guess, obsessed with like getting an actual practical experience of that. So that's what led me down that world of fashion. I read a lot about the founder of Zara, Mencio Ortega. I loved like how he kind of approached things. I was like, cool, that could be a model. Like I could do something. Let's sell like case study. Let's sell t-shirts. It's basics. I never really, I would say I had a passion to sell clothes or fashion, but I was definitely had a passion to figure out firsthand what it's like to create something, market it, and then sell it. And like that loop, that process. And that's what drew me to that. And I got that hit. So I was just selling t-shirts locally using AS Color when they were just small. Like they were just not even known. It was crazy. It was about 9 years ago. And then after that, once I got my validation, I was like, oh, cool, let's go overseas. Go to China and figure out how to build a collection, which is a nice punch in the face of learning curves. But no, that's kind of like, yeah, I've just always just done things to sort of understand it firsthand. I want to feel it. I just don't want to read about it.
You mentioned there like a punch to the face, and like what exactly happens? Like, did you have a good run on the board? And also from like Zara's perspective, I understand that they kind of looked at fashion. They're like, that works, that's rad. Let's duplicate that and produce that in China as fast as possible, get it on the shelves and mass produce it. Yeah. Was that kind of the approach you were taking? And what was the punch to the face?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I would go in Australia and go to, I don't know, Polo, Ralph Lauren or one of these good brands and just sort of say, yeah, I like that blazer, I like that shirt. and I'd take small, medium, large XL. So I'd have the blocks. But then when I went there, it was, I guess,
Wait, so you were buying like
yeah,
different
I just bought them all here.
sizes
And then,
and measuring them?
no, I didn't measure. I said, that's your job. Like to the factory, I was like, that's your grading. Because they always kept telling me, what's your grading or what's your padding? What does that even freaking mean? Like,
Yeah.
and what's your like difference between small, medium, large, and XL? I was like, all right, well, I have no idea. So I just buy it and I go, that's your, like, measure it.
You just send it to them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be like their framework to work off. So at least I could reduce that as an outlier of something that would not work. But I guess getting, punched in the face was like learning about how to deal with like Chinese customs and relations. So like understanding, like, I'm not just going to go over and say, I want to make this, like, let's make it. Like, there's just like, no, take you through this process. You got to build a relationship. You got to come to the restaurant us and go out with us and like build that connection before you can just do business. So that was a learning curve. And then just learning how to actually produce clothes on scale. So like my scale wasn't like a scale, otherwise it's a whole different story. But I was 0.1% of what they were doing. So, but learning about that was interesting. Like now I want to get 1,000 pairs of chino. So how do I ensure like I maintain quality and also consistency across that whole collection? So that was a big learning curve when you don't have any background in any of that stuff. So yeah, learned that the only way by just doing it.
Yeah, and you strike me as someone who's really curious. What is it about like the mechanism or the tangible thing that you think is the most alluring for you to come in and go, I just want to figure this out? Like what parts of it really intrigue you the most?
I think just the fact if I could actually make something that someone would buy, and like I could build a model, it's not a crazy model, but I could build something that had a cost of good to it, and I could actually trade that. So if I could make chinos for $10 and sell them for $80, and someone would actually buy it. I was just wanted to know like what were the principles, or what like what goes behind that transaction. And I think I was super curious just to learn about how that can happen, because I just wanted to know what it takes. And I think that was the biggest driver for me. So I always just would look at things that worked and just kind of like work backwards. All right, cool. How do I do that now for myself, and what happens then?
Did you have like a couple of rules around how you would approach like, hey, which chinos do I research? Were you just buying a bunch of stuff and trying it on? Like, how did you find the recipe to like pick what you would steal?
I kept it pretty simple. I would only use what I believe what I liked. So I was the persona. And it's interesting, right? Because this approach actually played out later in my life with how I approach Relume. But I always like to be the persona. So I was like, all right, cool. I like the look of these jeans with the white t-shirt and black shirt. And I thought, well, there's going to be another 1,000 Dans out there that would agree with me. So let's run with that. So I would be picking, and then I would just go to different brands. So I'd go to Glue and General Pants and find the cuts that I like and go, okay, that's my chino. That's my shirt. That's my blazer. What else I made? A hat. That's my hat. And that's my boardies. They're my shorts. I'll just like go and pick from different brands and make my collection.
You've like created an ensemble, send it to China, and then you go over there and go make all this stuff. And then they would say, let's go to dinner first.
Yeah. Let's first go out to lunch and get me drunk on sake. I still remember I went over with my mate. They were freaking feeding us this sake. I was young. I was like 21. I didn't even know. It's like, oh, this tastes great. And they got me smashed because I didn't know what the impact, like I didn't know if I kept drinking this lolly water, what would it do for me? But yeah, it was like interesting. I don't know if they try to like bring my guard down, but I kept it together. We got the deal done.
They try to do a deal while you're under the influence of sake.
Yeah, that was the approach. I can't confirm or deny, but I think that was
bring inhibitions down, bring your guard down, and then strike at the lowest possible deal.
That's it.
I love that. For you, like obviously there's some traits and tropes here that maybe you picked up and carried into, I guess, where you kind of went next with this. So what year were you working on the Zara model and the fashion label? And I think it was called Phoenix.
Yeah. So Phoenix was straight during uni. My last year or second year of uni, that's when I started it. So I was 19, and then that carried on for about 3 years. Phoenix is a clothing business. That's where I hit these snags in terms of like production issues. So eventually my appetite grew a little bit too much relative to what I could take on, and I took a lot more risk on. So I bet the house on another collection. I forget it was summer or winter, because it was doing well. It was making money, and I thought, all right, cool. I've got all this cash now. I'm going to bet this on a bigger collection, and unfortunately, that collection was not I didn't get the quality that I needed, which kind of then tanked the business because I was just bleeding out slowly. I wasn't able to get new stock in. That shut down the stores, which eventually led to the collapse of Phoenix as in its first iteration. And just a massive learning curve, man, to be honest. And it was such a beautiful, like, I look back and like still one of my most fondest experience ever. Like I still like feel like goosebumps. Like I got it fucking tattooed on my wrist to always remind me of that beautiful experience. But yeah, it was just I'm always so thankful for it because it was just the best education that I could have ever got in terms of just running business, learning how to sell and make things happen.
And do you look at that failure somewhat now as a blessing, or is it kind of set you on a trajectory to shift gears?
Oh, it's a blessing. I'm glad I'm not in clothing.
And what's tattooed on your wrist?
I got the F, the Phoenix, yeah. So I got that put on my...
Just a nice little reminder.
Just a nice daily reminder of like, that's where you started, but also just always be a cowboy. Just keep punting. Like don't be too knowledgeable. Like just keep having that beginner mindset, because if I knew about the clothing business and I knew about all this, that inventory management, how to ship things in, how to get a lease, hire people. If I knew the end, there's a very, I think, like smaller chance I would have gone down that path because it was punishing. So I always like to sort of like constantly remind myself of having that beginner's mindset, because it allows you to go in naively. Look, of course, you make a little bit more mistakes, but at least you do things that you don't get scared off. You just do it. And I think that's what Phoenix taught me. They just always have that beginner's mindset, go in with your guards down. Like, be smart, use your mistakes to get better, but just don't get caught up like, oh, don't do that, or don't, like, that's gonna, like, if you're gonna start a fashion business, that's really tough. You're gonna go through all this. Like, you always have those annoying freaking people that say that stuff in terms of like predicting the outcome. But I was like, nah, I'm just gonna do it, and I'm glad I did.
That's a good perspective. And I saw a quote, I think it was yesterday from Alex Hormozi. Entrepreneurs look for opportunities in every problem, and everyone else looks for problems in every opportunity. Yeah. And it sounds like that naivete really kind of allows you to kind of come at things with curiosity. How did these experiences that you went through with Phoenix, and I understand you did some stuff in influential marketing, how did they lay the foundation for Relume?
It really was, to be honest, learning about how to get insights that are unique to yourself and solving an actual problem that has, I guess, an opportunity size or market size to it. So I think what I learned about both experiences when I went from Phoenix Clothing and then I did the social analytics startup, which is called Lumio, I learned a lot about how to kind of build a company on the right foundations. Obviously, you can have a crack at selling clothes, but if you don't have an angle, eventually that will catch up with you because you're not really differentiating yourself. And then with Lumio, I figured out, because I built an e-com business, which led me down the path of doing influencer sales, which led me down the problem of like, shit, not all these influencers are the same. So then I experienced that pain of dealing with multiple influencers, which led me down the path of saying, I actually think this company called Lumio, we could solve the problem of working with 10, 20, 30 different influencers and increasing the odds of them actually selling your product. So I experienced that problem firsthand. So it was a unique insight that I believe that only I not everyone knew, but I had a good knowledge, I had a good deep understanding of it, which meant I had that opportunity to solve that. And I think that's what led me down to Relume, is that being always not willing to start something unless I had a unique insight that was something that I could actually win and go for.
It's really interesting how you can kind of string things together in business. You might not think starting Phoenix might help with a tech components company. In many ways, it's kind of set some of the foundation perspective or approach to business. When you, I guess, started Relume, I understand that it started as an agency and you guys were like a design and website development agency initially. How did you kind of get into that space? And at what point were you like, man, like there's something else here I want to change this into?
Yeah. So I started that with my co-founder, Adam. So him and I, we were together in Lumio. So we were working on that startup. We got acquired by a larger analytics company in Germany. That's when I worked overseas. I went and worked in Germany. Adam stayed here locally. And then him and I always wanted to start something. So we always wanted to do something, but we didn't have, again, wanted to find that unique insight. So we went into an accelerated program, which was called Antler. We dabbled around with ideas there, but again, nothing kind of surfaced up there that was intriguing enough to spend our time of, which is a long time, we know, of and energy and effort. But nothing was compelling enough there to sort of go any further. So we parked Antler and moved on from that. And that's when the idea of the agency came. So we thought to ourselves, all right, good. We're really good at building these marketing websites. We want to gain insights. So how do we almost create an insights factory? And that's what we believe the starting an agency would do. So we kicked off Relume 4 years ago, 2021, August 21.
Okay.
And as an agency, we just said we're going to build websites for the purpose of obviously making money, because that keeps things moving along, but seeing if we can get an insight from one of these companies or get insights into being the agency ourselves. So
when you say insights, what exactly were you looking for?
Anything. We worked for like a beauty company and we're like, cool. What's this beauty industry like? We looked into it. That's interesting. Or we worked with a chiropractor. And we're like, oh, cool. They're working with a booking app and that booking app didn't work for them and they had problems when they talked about it. So we were just like, these clients probably thought we were the weirdest people, to be honest. Because like we're asking so many questions about their business and like, okay, you guys really care about chiropractic business. Like, yeah, we do. We want to really know how the booking system works and how that's all functioning. So we just thought that we could get insights, random insights from different industries by working with a tech company, a local service, a local beauty company.
So kind of like being attuned and aware to like, okay, there's a mechanism that you use as a chiropractor that's like, okay, we need a really good booking system that articulates these questions or what have you. And you're like taking note of that. And then at that point in time where you're like, we could build something better than that or we could replace it.
Oh, look, it was just, we thought about, hey, was that a common theme across the accounting person that we did a website? Well, we're just trying to find any common themes across certain types of personas. We had so many random ideas that came from working with these types of businesses. So we wanted to build like another potential analytics app, or like we wanted to build something that there's so many different ideas. But again, none of them were compelling enough to sort of say, this is the idea that we were looking for. So, but yeah, funny enough, it came in our own backyard. So we were building so many different websites over time. We were doing it in a way which we're using this component system, I guess it was like a wireframe. And over and over, we were repeating that same process across 10, 15, 20 different websites. And we're like, wow, like we are approaching this in a way that it's helping us build websites probably in a quarter of the time, consistently. And then we kind of looked at ourselves and thought, this is the idea. Like, this is what we came for. This is it. So
you're building this tool to speed up your own processes for your own delivery on your own clients.
Correct.
And then you started to kind of figure out, and I understand this. You guys were looking at AI pretty early, as well. Of like, how do we? Because a wireframe, it might be good to start explaining like what is a wireframe and like what is a component, and then we can kind of unpack it from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So August started Relume as an agency, and it was about a year after that we had that insight. Or like we started to form that insight more. So when I say wireframes, that effectively when you build a marketing website, you have to approach it. Well, you don't have to, but how we approach it, you want to approach it in multiple stages. And for us, it's having the first things first is a sitemap. So like identifying the key information flows and what the pages look like, the sections in that pages. So
how many pages, how they link together.
Correct.
That's
so we'll develop a sitemap for the client, and that helps reduce scope as well. So like, okay, cool. This is going to be roughly how many pages, sections, and we're like, that's going to cost us X amount. And then we're like, from that, we would then go into this wireframe mode, which would effectively be the bones of the website. So we wouldn't want to jump straight into design because that distracts the client from they'll focus on the gradient or the button. Like we don't even need to look at that now. So the purpose of the wireframe is to set up the structure of the website from
like headline goes here, video goes here, bio and testimonial, like where everything kind of sits.
Correct. And with copy. So we would start to introduce copy.
You would write the copy
stage
as well?
Yeah. So this copy would sort of like start to inform the design. So we thought that, okay, cool. Having that process helps us really then improve the chances of making the design phase more successful. So we broke it up into multiple stages. And at that wireframe stage is where we were using we built blocks, like these components, and we're using like those
Lego,
same ones.
they stack together different ways. Yep.
And there's different ways to go about it. So then we kind of looked into it a little bit more. Like we sort of saw other agencies were approaching it using templates, and they'll buy a template, rewire a template, and that ended up taking longer than just actually doing it from scratch. So that's where we thought, okay, cool, we're solving it for ourselves, And this is where we believe the opportunity is. And then that was probably 1.5 years later, we launched Relume as Relume Library. So in Jan 22, at the start of that year, we launched this no-code product. So Adam and I worked together on, I had no developer at the time, so just the both of us, and we were just hacking together using Webflow and different no-code stacks to put together this product where you could copy and paste components for Webflow specifically. And yeah, we were lucky enough to get the product market fit that we wanted, well, like, as expected, because again, we were the persona, we knew the problem, and we knew how to talk to that persona. And we launched that in Jan, and yeah, we're able to kind of get some early traction and really then put all our energy and effort to focusing on that specifically, like the library of components for Webflow and Figma. No AI yet.
Yeah. And so for the viewers here, like Webflow is essentially like a website building platform like WordPress. It's like Squarespace or Wix or what have you. And then Figma is kind of like a program that UX, UI, and graphic designers kind of use to like make sure that they're designing and implementing structure into websites essentially. And there was a point by which where you had, I guess, produced a website with some of these components on it. And I understand that Webflow like showcased it, or like something happened where you guys got an influx of people asking like, how do we do this?
Yeah,
what happened?
That was the catalyst of us seeing the commercial opportunity of components. So what we would do is that we were off the agency. Well, I was off the agency model because we weren't getting clients. It's a punish. It's not easy. You got to sell it. It's big ticket items, and the sales process can take time. But there's a period of time where Adam said, I'm going to redesign the homepage. And we're like, okay, cool. Redesign the homepage. What is that going to do? He's like, no, trust me. I'm going to redesign the homepage, and it's going to have an impact. So I was like, all right, fine, let's go for it. Because at that point, well, I wanted to not shut down, like probably just pivot to something else. So yeah, Adam redesigned it, and that's when it got showcased on Webflow's main page of like websites built on Webflow, and that got that influx of two things: clients, people that wanted us to build their websites, and I all of a sudden became super busy from a sales perspective. But then that's where we started to see the commercial intent of people saying, hey, can I have that gradient? Oh, that was called a Gaussian blur. Can I have that component, what you did for that website? And so we were like, that's interesting. Let's make it into a clonable, which is effectively something on Webflow where you can put it up and people can clone it. So we put it up as a clonable, and they got a shit ton of clones. And we're like, yeah, that's. So
you're kind of seeing this all kind of take place, and you're like, something's happening here. And did you realize quickly, like, oh, there's a different market fit than we expected? We were trying to get people like chiropractors to get us to build a website, and now other web devs are like, how do I do that for my clients? Or people trying to build their own stuff were like, how do I use that and clone that and do that myself?
Yeah, correct. And they were just able to really speak to the speed. So what we did really well was show these developers of how they could build websites for their clients really quickly. And that could result in two things. It allows you to either make better profit margins on one project, or it allows you to take on two. So it just helped them understand, or I guess we were really open about not only creating the product of the components, but also with education and creating content like, this is how you build a chiropractic website in a short amount of time, and this is how you would present to your client. So we are, and we still do, like, we want to create a system of building a website that we believe is the right way, because we know if you do follow this system or approach, it's going to significantly increase the odds of you getting a website built in a quarter of the time, which, again, not to say you're making it less quality, but we take a lot of the heavy lifting out so you can focus on the bigger things, like better client experience, better interactions on a text or a hover effect, like just focusing on the small things and allow Relume to do a lot of that heavy lifting. That's how we sold it to these.
Yeah,
agencies.
and at what point were you like, we're just going to do this and not do any of the client stuff?
I still remember 6 months, 6 months in. So it was Jan, and then it was halfway through in 2022 where I was like able to officially, shut down the agency side of the business. So in that period of time, we also were lucky enough to get our co-founding CTO, Slater. So he joined, and it was the three of us. So we had all the foundations and the structures ready to go to build a tech company, and we effectively had all focus and attention now onto that. And that's when things started to, like, obviously ramp up a lot. So now that we had full focus, myself, Adam, and Slater, on just building out Relume as a product, it significantly changed the trajectory of where we're going.
I like what you said there about focus, because I think sometimes like a founder can be in a situation where it's like, we have clients over here, we're happy fulfilling this and making money off this, and then there's this tech opportunity that's going crazy. Was there any fear kind of like divorcing yourself from that and putting yourself at risk, or were you just like, nah, like we're going all in, it's definitely going to work? Like, what was your headspace and how did you transition mentally?
Yeah, look, I think it was high conviction, to be honest. Like, again, all the experience from before, whether or not it was from my previous, I know when something's on, it's on.
You're just looking at the F on your arm, you're like, let's just do it.
Just jump in. And Adam asked a saying that I had, it was always called order the chinos, right? Where we ordered 1,000 pairs of chinos and we didn't know how to sell them, but I had to figure that out. So it's always that mentality of just order the chinos and you'll figure it out. So yeah, we jumped straight into it. I think we're very confident though, like with the trajectory of the early MRR coming through, that we could at least cover ourselves. And honestly, like the downside, very low. Like in the day, if this fails, you could affect it. Like we always did think about what is the downside. So we did acknowledge it, but for us, it was like, okay, cool. If this fails, the downside is that you turn it free, make this whole product free, which would then significantly increase the leads of your agency again. So even though we actually turned off the agency, it still existed. It didn't, like, it wasn't deleted from like the web page or anything. So we just did not work on any new clients. But we knew, worst case, if anything did blow up, sure, make Relume library as a product free. That would increase odds back to Relume agency, and we'll just make money again and do it again.
But the I guess the concept you were really going for there was the subscription format.
Yeah.
And was it predominantly other web devs and people in the design space? And did you have any surprises there around people who were using it?
Yeah. So specifically, right, it's B2B, other agencies building for clients. They're still our primary persona at the moment, and our main people who use Relume, because they get a lot of value out of building multiple websites, again, with removing a lot of the heavy lifting. Some surprises, there are people who have learnt Webflow now because of Relume, because we've kind of like lowered the learning curve of getting into Webflow, because Webflow is a little bit more technical, but I think starting off with Relume helped them understand the foundations of Webflow quicker. So there's been a lot of beginners, of people building websites for the first time, which is pretty cool. And I guess the other personas, the founders or people building their own websites for their own agencies or for their own startups, they use Relume because, again, just helps sort of
that person that's like bootstrapping, I got to figure out myself. I can't hire a web dev. And I understand the way you made this like more accessible with a lower barrier to entry was the introduction of AI pretty early on.
Yeah.
So walk me through that, man. What exactly were you doing? At what point were you implementing AI? And I find it really interesting that you were doing this very early before AI was kind of like quote unquote a trend.
Look, well, credit to our man CTO Slater. He was always on that cutting edge. I remember he used to show me, I think it was GPT-1. Like, oh, look what it's doing. I was like, man, like, what is that? Like, it's not doing anything. But he had that vision to sort of like see the impact of where it could go. So we were always, we're lucky to have, I guess, that insight and always that sort of thinking behind the scenes. But I think what we collectively sort of started to look at is like, all right, cool, we've got this incredible component library, and on Figma now, on Webflow and now Figma. So we expanded out into Figma. So we had components on Webflow and Figma. And we thought to ourselves, well, how can AI make the process even better? So we wanted to build something that enhanced the process and not necessarily just be this gimmick website builder. So we really
like AI powered, just for the sake of it, like genuinely trying to use it as a functional tool.
Correct. Like there's a lot of crap out there that you could try, use, and play with, and see it. You can go and use different experiences, and they haven't really thought, in my opinion, of like what the actual job to be done is. Like, what are these people actually doing when they're building a website? So we thought, okay, cool. AI's there. It's obviously doing a great job at suggesting a few things, and we thought if we could leverage our components with the AI, we'd be able to build this experience of what I was talking about before, sitemap to wireframe. As we know from an agency, as our persona, we know when you're creating a website for a client, you want to create that sitemap and then obviously convert that into a wireframe. So we thought, all right, cool. Well, we have that opportunity now of doing this with AI. So we leveraged AI to make our first version. So we kind of went in this iterative steps. We just didn't like go straight into it. We tested out first with just like a copy plugin, and we were like it was called Relume Ipsum, and we we're just playing around with how we could actually help people add copy to the wireframes. We're like, cool, all right, got our hands dirty, that worked. And then the second stage was like, how do we now actually build a platform? This was like the most transformative experience because we're going from just like this component library to an actual platform, a design platform. I'm so naturally scared as fuck, but it was not scared, but like wrong word, just more excited and I don't know how to explain it. I was just very pumped to see like that's it was a big bet. So created a sitemap view first, and that worked. It's like awesome. All right, cool. So now you're generating a sitemap using AI.
So would this work like obviously our dev team are using this, but like I understand this, you go into the browser and you can kind of like type in what you want to have happen. Let's just say, for example, like, hey, I want to launch a shoe store, kind of like Adidas shoe store, and I want a wireframe that allows me to like sell 5 different styles in 10 different colors, blah, 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 blah. You punch it in, and then it spits out a wireframe.
Yep, correct. And it will identify about us, who we are, who are the people selling the shoes, why they want to sell these shoes, who are the products, here's the product page, here's the 5 products, the 10 categories. So it would identify the website.
And would it like crawl through the internet and look at Adidas website?
Yeah,
or?
so like AI has done a really good job of understanding structures across thousands of websites. So they've got a very good understanding of what a good product website would look like. You can actually specifically pull in at Adidas if you'd like.
Okay, as a reference, but you don't have to. You can just say, I want a great shoe brand for athletes. You just describe it in the way you would chat to ChatGPT into your platform. Yeah, and then would the underlying AI be ChatGPT? Like what?
Yeah. So the underlying model is OpenAI, which ChatGPT, which kind of powers Relume, and helps then suggest those sitemaps. And then that is the first step. And then the second step is like, great, how do we effectively attach a wireframe to that sitemap? So that section. So that's where we have to obviously then build that next stage of the wireframe mode, which allows the designers to then convert that sitemap into an entire wireframe experience. And that's going to now build out this shoe website with sections, with copy over 5, 10, 15 pages. It doesn't matter how many pages. And that puts it into a stage now where, all right, great, you've effectively created the whole website. Now you can either export that out to Figma to add the design and take it to another level, or you can export that straight into Webflow if you're ready to just dev. Depends on your flow, right? The ideal flow is you go from Relume to Figma, finalize the design, show it to the client, get approval, and then you go back to Relume, export that to Webflow, and then start building out on Webflow. However, some people build it for themselves. They just go from Relume straight to Webflow and just start building straight away. So depends on that user flow or who you're building for. But yeah, we launched that Relume AI site builder in August last year. I feel like August always seems to be a date that we do stuff. No, we didn't do anything this August. So then we launched that in August last year. And that's when things, again, trajectory of users and just the appetite of like what we are and who we are significantly changed. It was really cool to see, take that bet and that bet pull off. And now Relume is an AI website builder, generates wireframes, sitemaps and wireframes that exports to Figma and Webflow. And that was like a significant change from just a component library, copy and pasting from Relume into other platforms. So yeah, we had a new challenge on our hand. We had to then start to look to the future of that now we need to start to hire more people in our team and work and take this to another level and capitalize on this opportunity.
And with the components piece, so like, let me just better understand that. The way it kind of works in my head is like widgets or like functions or tools that you could integrate into a website. And you were layering that together with the website builder in many aspects. Yeah. Like, so then when I would move over to Figma, you're kind of applying your IP together with what the AI power brings to the table, and then mashes that together and kind of creates this interesting intersection between different things to create a great product or outcome for an agency or for a user.
Yeah, correct. It really just helps get that, like you said, put in your idea, and it's that blank canvas problem people talk about where it just gives you a direction. Yeah, it just gives you like a great direction. And some people honestly don't even use it for Figma and Webflow. They use it as a way to generate an idea of what my new website could look like and what the flow of it could be. And yeah, that blank canvas problem can be solved by just putting in a description and letting AI describe what the website should look like.
It still allows people to have creative control and to like
100%.
Test 50 ideas and then pick one, right? So since Relume was like quite an early adopter of AI, was there ever any apprehension around integrating this into the system or into the software?
I know. I think it was pretty obvious that was going to be the future, as we've already seen now today. I think it's different to like the whole freaking all those other waves that came through. Like honestly, still I don't even know what the use of. I probably get told off, but I still didn't even know what the practical use of crypto was when it was out there, or NFTs. And I feel like there's these tech opportunities or waves that come through, and I think that it for us, or for me personally, there was just an obvious use case for AI. Like it was not a fad or something that was just going to come and go. It was very obvious to me that this is not going away anytime soon. It's only like we are in its infancy of what AI is going to be doing.
I would agree with that. And when you looked at ChatGPT for the first time, your opinion was kind of dismissive, like, okay, cool, whatever. At what point were you like, hang on a second, like there's something really big about this?
I think it was the next model. I think it was GPT 2 or 3 where it started to really understand how to describe what a good website is. And that's when we started to sort of go deeper into that and say, oh, wow, like it's starting to understand, it's being trained on more websites. So it actually starts to understand what a good product or what a good shoe website would look like. So when it started to really understand that in a little bit more of a deeper sense, we knew that that's where, yeah, again, how do we now merge this with our whole world? And that was that opportunity. That's when we saw that opportunity to go deeper into that.
Yeah. And I think the human relationship with AI is been really interesting to observe. For example, right now behind the scenes here,
Yo, my name's DAIN Walker and I am disgustingly obsessed with branding. I had to figure out a way to do branding every single day, so I branded myself. Then I started my agency, RIVYL. And hired a team of branding mavericks hell-bent on creating brands so good that they'll make your competition shit their pants. So here's the thing, you want your brand to go viral and RIVYL makes brands go viral. That's why we're offering you a free 30-minute branding session to get an expert's opinion. If you don't believe me, the proof is in the pudding. Here's what clients have to say about RIVYL.
RIVYL is trusted by brands like Nutrition Warehouse, Light My Bricks, and Vumi.
So if you want to absolutely smoke the competition and make your brand go viral, hit the link below and book in your free 30-minute branding session.
General manager has been working on this really cool automative proposal system. And we spend hours and hours and hours every week picking the pages and curating the language and calculating the price points for each product. Like it's quite a rigorous process to put a proposal together, as you would have probably experienced running your own agency. But he's been using ChatGPT to basically like, hey, what's up, ChatGPT? Like, I want to do this thing. And it's like, cool, like we could do it. And he goes, can I use Excel and integrate it into Google Slides and then have it pre-populate and automate the proposal kit? And he's been putting in these prompts, and ChatGPT's just been talking to him about like, do this, do that, here's the code. And like within a matter of like 2 days, we've half engineered this system. And to me, I'm just like watching this thing come together. I'm like, this is crazy. This would usually take us, this is going to save us hundreds of hours a year, which then gives us all that time back to really then invest more into the creative side of the business. So for you, what was the initial inertia that you felt that this gave you as an entrepreneur sitting at the helm of this company?
It's just that, like that example that you said is just the way that AI can not only just create things or create ideas, but also explain it to you, right? And explain it to you in a way that is as clear as possible. What really has opened our mind is that it's just now in our company with Relume is always kind of optimizing to what would AI do here. And it's a weird thing to do, to be honest. Like to always think from, I don't know, how do you hire better, as an example? Of course, we can talk about it, but when you actually start to poke AI and ask it questions, or what's the best way of hiring, or how do you do this, it starts to really kind of put out some interesting points. And I think the power of what I've learned is that how you ask it and how you go back and ask it more questions and give it more context. And I think what people dismiss maybe some initial responses because of the fact that it's just been one prompt and you say, hey, make me a proposal. Like I didn't do it. But if you actually go deeper and suggest or come back with more questions, it's incredible of how much it opens up. And I think for me, that's now, I guess, all of us, how we like to sort of look at it. Relume is like, go deeper and ask it more questions, and it will surface up more incredible insights the more you probe and go and ask more as you converse with it. It's incredible.
So within these conversations, for those people that are listening to this, how might they approach that? What are the steps of making sure that they really vet out what it is that AI is prompting them to do?
Yeah, like talk to it like it's an expert. So talk to it in a way that it's a human. So let's just say you want to learn how to play piano. Ask it how to play piano. It's going to say, okay, go and learn this. But I think what the power is like, I only have this setup. How do I do this? I want to learn it in 2 hours or every day. What's the best structure for me to do? Like, so actually like probe it to say, create a program for me tailored around my experience. And I feel like I only have 1 hour a day. I only have a electric piano that looks like this. How do I actually learn piano? I know it's probably a random one, but I like piano.
No, I like it. Like, don't just ask it basic questions. Like, consult with it and give it information and prompt it and try to make sure it actually understands the full breadth of your challenge.
Yeah, give it context. Like the other day, I wanted to learn how to make a tomahawk better steak. And instead of just saying, how do I make a tomahawk steak? I started off with like, how do I make it? But then I gave it more context to in the sense of like, this is how Jamie Oliver cooks his tomahawk steaks. And this is how, what's the other one?
So you gave it resource information.
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay cooks his, this is how he does it. So you feed it with context. And then what ends up happening is that it starts to like in this instance, you've just given it more direction. And the more direction that you give it, it can come out with some powerful things. So recently, more practical inside of Relume, we're doing a product release for a new idea.
How was the tomahawk, by the way?
Oh, it was good. On 500 grams. I got to learn how to do it for a kilo. It'll change the whole thing, but that's for next week. What we did was there's this idea called the Jeff Bezos pre-release, right? So when you're building a new product, the idea of this is that before you actually build anything or a new feature, you do a press release. What is this feature going to actually do? And when we're going down this new path for new features that we want to build, we do the Jeff Bezos press release to then identify, introducing this new product by Relume. It does this, and this. But we fed it with a Jeff Bezos pre-release. We told it about that. And then that's what helped it create an awesome pre-release for our products that we're looking to build in the future. So in short, more context you give it, the more it opens up and the more golden nuggets you can get.
Yeah, it's almost like give it the circumstances that you're in, the timelines, maybe the boundaries of the things you can't do, and then like some source material. Like, hey, these are some other things I've seen. I want to kind of duplicate this. This is my circumstances, the tools I have access to, the things I can't do, and then it really customizes something for you.
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting that humanity is at an era where this is happening. What's your personal opinion and relationship, and what's your perspective on AI as a whole?
Generally speaking, I think it needs to be embraced. I think it could take away a lot of the mundane things that you don't want to do in life, and also help give you or surface up better. We use Google as a search engine now, and I think that's soon going to become crazy to think. An old way to, again, the tomahawk example, it took me forever to find it specifically about what I was looking for, because my one weighed 550 grams and it was very specific, right? So I feel like a lot of these mundane, repetitive tasks, I think people should start to embrace it and just see how they can incorporate it in their life. It's crazy. You can, regardless of any level, from being tech person, working in sales, working as a plumber, working as a teacher, it can and will be able to take away a lot of those small things, or just helping you write an email better. But yeah, I feel like AI should be embraced to help you supercharge and take away a lot of the small tasks to allow you to focus on other things, and just build out these AI assistants that allow you to focus on leveling up whatever you're doing, focusing up on leveling up on other activities. So it takes away the baseline, acts as like your super assistant, and then it unlocks opportunities for you to work on other things to expand your business, expand your career, whatever it is. But it just needs to be embraced. I wouldn't, like, it's not going, it's not going away.
I think it's clear it's not going anywhere, for sure. And you make a good point there around how it can be kind of seen as like a super, and in our general manager's case, it's like a super assistant on how to build the world's best proposal document, and we're freaking excited about it. So for you have this really cool quote, and it's what you start off with is not always where you end up as. And for you, how do you sustain your momentum and your motivation as an entrepreneur?
I think you just embrace that whole journey and that whole process. I feel like what I love doing personally is just not getting too caught up in the best parts and not getting too caught up in the low parts and just always trying to stay in that middle. It's hard, but I do want to, when we double revenue or double this, I do want to get so excited. But then I also know there could be a month where you make no revenue or growth in 3 months. So like that's just an example, right, of just trying to always stay in that middle. And I feel like it's a marathon for me. That's why I love doing like these sport challenges or anything like that, because those things help teach your mind that these entrepreneurial pursuits are all so long term, and you don't know. Like I started at 20, I'm 33 now.
Yeah, me too.
13 years. Yeah. It's like we're in the golden
we're in that
age,
golden era, man, for sure.
where I don't think even the money I've ever earned is probably equals to $5 an hour accumulatively over 13 years. So like, it's the thing is that the point is that it's a marathon. So I feel like in a marathon, you don't just sprint or you don't walk, because if you do walk, like the lactic acid will build up and you'll just collapse. So keeping a constant pace is the key. So that's how I try to like to approach it in whatever I do. Whether or not Relume is going to scale and become 100x successful next week, I'm just still like to stay as neutral as I can, because it just helps me stay in a positive state. Because you can get caught up in emotions, man, so badly. Like emotions can, if you let it if you let it consume you, you can sink. And there are some rabbit holes that you can go down that you don't want to go down. So I think that allows you. Yeah, and look, I think training helps stay there. That probably is the main thing, to be honest. Just staying fit helps you maintain that equilibrium of staying in the middle.
And I like the concept of staying in the middle, not getting too attached to the L's or too attached to the W's. And I've done this in the past where I get a couple W's under my belt, my ego gets huge, and I start having to walk through room sideways because my head gets too, you know what I mean? And then that always bites you in the ass. And then if you attach to the L's, you can get caught in a funk. And you're like, nothing ever goes my way, and you can become a victim. Do you have any tools to just keep you regulated? And I know you mentioned one of them is training. Is there anything else that you use to kind of keep you mentally level?
I think training is number one.
Yeah.
Like if you're not doing some sort of physical activity, whether it's walking, bike riding or gym, whatever it is, just physical activity. I think, I've been sick probably like sometimes for 5 days or something, and I just feel like the worst human ever. It's because I've done no training. So that is number one, period. Everything else, if you don't start there, then everything else is irrelevant. And I think another good hack is reading and podcasts. I think not getting too consumed about the content that's actually like listening to me, not getting too consumed about the actual content in the podcast, but using it as a means to reflect. So what I love is doing a podcast, listening to it, but it allows me to reflect on other things that it sparks ideas that I want to think about myself. So I do that by walking or bike riding. I think that's been my biggest savior, to be honest, of keeping the sanity. Long walks, long bike rides, listening to a podcast is just a way to sort of like switch off and just kind of allow yourself to think deep, but don't get caught up in the small things. You just go for a long run and come back a new person.
I like that concept, and I have a theory, and I call it idea cocktails. So I saw this theory that like it's good to read multiple books at once, which usually scares the shit out of people because they're like, I got to finish this one book before I read the next one. I get it. But I did this thing for a couple months recently where it's like in the morning, I'll read something crazy. Like I'll read like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, like really mind-bending shit. And then around lunch, you just pick up like a quick action tip book, which is like try these tips and techniques. And then at night, I'll listen to like or read a biography.
Yeah.
And what happens is you start to see like these ideas kind of mixed together. So rather than just drinking straight vodka, you're kind of like making this like weird idea cocktail. And then you mix that with your day-to-day business. And then it ends up with like, you start looking at things from a very interesting perspective. Yeah. And I like what you said there about like going for a bike ride, listening to a pod, but not listening to it for advice, but trying to reflect on what you're doing.
Yeah. It sparks you. It puts you into this relaxed state. It puts you into a pensive state and allows you to think of your own things. It's crazy. It happens with reading as well. So I read not to, obviously I take some of it, but I read because it puts me in this relaxed state that allows me to go think about my things. And I think they're the best mediums for ideas.
Is that what they call like theta state? I don't fully understand it, but
Yeah, I think so. There's got to be like this.
we'll ask ChatGPT.
There's some scientific reason, but I just know it works. Again, naive. It works for me.
Was there ever a moment throughout your journey that you thought like this is gonna fail? Like something's gone wrong and you're like, I don't know how this is gonna, I guess, correct itself.
Oh fuck yeah! Like probably countless numbers of times I've should have blown up and not been here. So I said to you guys before, like the fact that I'm just here and I'm not homeless is an achievement, and I have some money. No, I think there's been so many times where things are nearly blown up.
Like something recently.
Relume was like close to not existing when I was talking with Adam saying I'm out. You know, this agency stuff sucks. I'm not doing this anymore, and that was 3 or 4 months in, where I was like, I'm going to go do something else now. And until he pushed ahead with redesigning the website and launching it, that kind of changed our trajectory. So that was a close time where I nearly pulled the pin. But there's been it is countless. But again, a lot of these things have just been just belts, like notches to add to the belt to sort of like continue on that journey.
When these things happen, do you tend to like, you know, reframe them in a certain way, or like do you always try to find suck a lesson out of it?
Yeah, that's the main thing. Like you try to extract, as hard as it is, like you always try to extract some sort of learning from that. So whether or not like hire better, get a better problem, find out, like work on a better problem that has a bigger market opportunity. Like these small things, everything that I've kind of done along the way, I've just sort of built out my principle. It's like I don't know if you've read the Ray Dalio Principles, but
it's a brilliant book.
It's an awesome book, right? But how he kind of frames principles, I feel like that's to me is what you derive from your experiences. So for me, I've always created these principles along the way, which are forever evolving. Because like I'm going to learn something at Relume, I'm going to stuff up something. I know I will. I have probably stuffed up a few things already, but I'm going to learn, and that's going to again get entered into my personal principles for DAIN, which then evolve over time. I iterate them, and I think that if I can have more experiences, that builds up my principle book, and that just makes me make better decisions more frequently.
Do you feel like this decision making and what you were just saying there about like having your principles helps you somewhat build like a bit of a gut instinct?
Yeah.
How much of your decision making do you feel comes from gut instinct, or do you predominantly try to be a bit more logical and go back to your principles?
Well, I think the principles kind of frames that gut instinct, right? So they're not built on anything, I guess, that is there is some logic to it, yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting one. For me, I feel like the principles help inform that gut instinct, and I think I make a lot of decisions based off my gut instinct. And I also use this other framework of just always capping our downsides. So I think it's something I read with Nassim Taleb that I love, that I've taken to like my heart and applied to everything personal and business. It's just that every approach or every decision I make is based off that framework of I will cap my downside and have an infinite upside. So
what do you mean by capping your downside?
So in a scenario, let's say, again, like when we wanted to build Relume library as a product and go down that path. So for me, how I framed it was like with Adam saying, all right, cool. Well, this is an opportunity for us to have an infinite upside because of the fact that we can sell subscriptions and you can get 1,000 people that pay you and then you could get 2,000 the next day, right? There's an infinite upside to building a subscription-based business. But the downside, how do we cap this, right? So how do we build, like we don't want to bet the house, because the worst thing you do as an entrepreneur is wipe yourself out, because you are the sole function of how you generate ideas. If you wipe you out, you are done. So don't wipe yourself out. Yeah. So that's what the cap in the downside theory is, which essentially is like, oh, cool. In this scenario with the Relume library, we said, if this fails, the downside is effectively we turn it free and make a shit ton of agency revenue because we get in a lot of leads. So I was able to say, all right, cool, let's do it. Let's make this bet, because we've kind of like put in our mind of like, this is a pretty good downside and this is a unlimited upside, which ended up being obviously a great upside. So, but I was very confident in that bet because the downside was capped. I wasn't going to get wiped out. I just don't want to be wiped out because that just ruins everything. So
it's kind of like having a contingency plan where it's like, if something goes wrong, we got a backup plan.
Yeah, it's a way. Like people probably like some entrepreneurs hate the word like, oh, you've got a backup plan. Like, I'll just go in for all that. But like, sure, you can do that. And then I exist here 13 years later is because I've done that. I haven't been killed off yet. So,
but you want to
Yeah.
stack the deck in your favor, and this initial bet, you're like, obviously every bet has risk, but you were like, hey, the upside here is huge.
Yeah.
And worst case scenario, we go free.
Yeah.
And both cases, we make money. We win.
100%. Yeah. And if you do that and you make those decisions continuously and always have that, if you increase those decisions in your period of time, whatever you're doing, you're increasing the odds of hitting that exponential moment. So I always want to do as many of these decisions as I can, so we can always put ourselves in that position to have that upside when it does come around.
And when you say exponential moment, like what might that look like for you?
So, for example, was the bet we took on going from Relume as a component copy and paste business to an AI site builder.
Okay.
So for us, we thought to ourselves, again, there's the upside here. If we build a platform, we significantly change the trajectory of our company. What is the downside here? And we capped our downside at a 2-month bet of engineering. So we thought to ourselves, 2-month bet of engineering, let's say the engineer's 10 grand a month, that's a 20 grand bet. Not a bad downside, right? I've capped it at 20K.
And by cap, you mean like there's a price limit, there's a work limit, and we know what it is.
Yeah, we're going to work on this for 2 months, and those 2 months is going to equal salary. Probably could chuck in my salary, Adam's, and it's like, let's say it's going to be a 100 grand bet. Let's say we had $1 million in the bank, so it's not going to kill us. So if I'm going to take a 100 grand bet on building this site builder tool, but the upside of that site builder tool could be millions, what are you doing? Do it. And do these decisions all the time. Always think about these in your businesses. Like, what are the bets I can make that has a capped downside, but I could unlock a whole new world? Because we had that opportunity when we're doing the site builder to like build a plugin or just build an extension of Webflow. Like we could have took a smaller increment and a smaller little bet, but I still remember the cost of that bet was relatively the same. So we thought to ourselves, all right, cool. If the cost of the bet is relatively the same, let's go for that bigger one. Let's go for that thing that allows us to have a bigger upside. So again, if you have that framework, we could know that the capped downside was always going to be 100K, and we knew the upside could be infinite. We chose build our own platform. So it happens all the time. I'm always doing it. And there's probably going to be another 10 of them that I want to be making over the next couple of months of increasing the odds. Because again, if I stuff it up, it doesn't matter. It's just, for a startup now, our biggest downside is cash that we spend, which is people, on the wrong thing. So I got to make sure that we cap that, and we don't want to be blowing out 3, 4, 6 months of development into something that doesn't have an infinite upside.
Absolutely. And I understand that. And I want to come back to the gut thing, because I think this is really interesting, the principles in the gut. Before we dive back into that, I understand recently you were offered $35 million to be acquired and integrated with a larger company. Take me through that moment. Like what happened? How did you feel? And what was really the repercussion for your psyche when that happened?
Yeah, I think what it does, if anyone gets an offer like that, I think it really shapes up your conviction. It really makes you fully understand what you're doing, the trajectory of what you're doing, and the confidence in what you're doing. So it was really cool. Obviously, again, same idea of like seeing my t-shirt on the beach, but having someone give you an offer is an incredible sign of validation from an external source to say what you're doing is good. It's validated, right? There's an objective way to measure your impact, which is such a cool
Do you want
feeling.
$35 million?
It's a huge objective measure of value to make you feel like shit. Like we what we have done has some value to it. It's not just in our heads.
That's a lot of money, man.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot.
It is.
You're talking about like, I'm happy that I'm not homeless, and now there's like, hey, you want $35 million?
Yeah, look, I think, it would not make me homeless. I'd have a nice home somewhere. But I think it sharpens up your decision-making process of like, where do we see this in 6 months to a year? And I think it helped force that upon us pretty early. And again, what's the really cool part is that we sort of thought to ourselves, Adam, Slater, and myself, the opportunity that we have here is big. And I think if this is what we're getting offered now, imagine if we make good decisions based off downside and infinite upside. Imagine if we keep doing over time for next year. Who knows what will be next year? And I think that was the most intriguing, like exciting part for us to continue on. We thought it was just a little bit too early, but we also thought to ourselves, hey, let's see what it's like to manage a team, 20 people or 30 or 50. Let's go there. Let's get that rep in. Let's see what it's like to experience that firsthand, so we can actually know that we did it, because it's very rare to have a company that does this and then scales like this to then have that opportunity. So we thought we could never probably, well, not never, but there's a probability you couldn't do it again. So let's at least learn how to run a team and grow a team and see who we are after that. What are we like after that? And yeah, that was one of the, I guess, one of the kind of the strongest reasons why we decided to press on and keep doing what we're doing.
How did you feel in that exact moment?
Oh, it was. I still remember the no. It's like fuck. Like it's weird. It's weird because you're backing a lot on you're now kind of like telling yourself, all right, you're doing this. I still remember, like, if we're doing this, like we're going hard and taking this to another level. So if we make this decision, there's no turning. Well, there's not really no turning back. We obviously could make another offer, but yeah, it does really put, not say pressure, but it makes you like want to really work hard and increase the value even more over time. And I think it's an exciting thing.
Do you feel like it gave you clarity?
Yeah, it gave you clarity. It gave us a strong sense of like, this is the right direction. What you're doing is the right path. So keep doing what you're doing. So yeah, confidence goes up, right? And again, but I don't want to take that to my head and think I'm a superstar, because that will fuck me in the long run. So I kind of want to just, again, take that as an opportunity of like, this is great. We do what we're doing is good. Let's just keep focusing, forging ahead, and yeah, don't look back.
And so when this happened, like, what was your gut saying to you, and what was your head saying to you?
I think there's the logical is take it. Like, you set yourself between all three of us. That's pretty decent money to sort of not probably work. Well, I don't think you do it for not working. It's just really, it sets yourself up. Like, it's pretty generational. It's not that generational. It's good money. So your head sort of says, yeah, take it, this is the conflicting part, but your gut says, no, damn, we could turn this to a freaking $1 billion company. What are you doing, you idiot? So like, it's that's the two things in your head that kind of like play against each other. So yeah, sometimes you shouldn't listen to your head.
Yeah. Tony Robbins says, if you're in your head, you're dead.
Yeah.
Because you can overthink things and you get caught up in the weeds. And it's like your mind is God and you need to tender it. Now back to principles. What are some of the principles that you've formed in your mind logically that you try to adhere to?
I think this one is always like push towards the best version of Dan. Like, so will this trajectory or this path get the best version out of Dan? And I always like to frame that in my head of, okay, if I take this path, would this get the best version of me? Or if I do this path, would this get the best version of me? And that's my life pursuit. I just want to be the bestest ever version I could ever be when I'm dead. So will this path get the best version of me? Probably not. And that's pretty, it's weird. That's where like it actually becomes rational. So if we do sell, I think there's a lower chance that I would have, I'd say work hard. I'm always going to work hard, but there's a lower chance I would have learned more things, right? Because I'm probably no longer taking care of payroll. I'm no longer having that pressure of revenue versus cost and growth and all that type of stuff. So there's that. And then if I took path B, which is continue on, yeah, fuck, that will get the best version of Dan. He's got to learn how to grow a team, hire good people, retain these people, motivate these people. So that option got the best. Like, it might be more punishing, but it might be more difficult, but it will get a better version. So that's a principle to me. Like, always focus on doing activities that get the best version of you. And I think that leads to the best decisions in all scenarios, because it negates the whole this is too hard or this is the difficult. It kind of like nullifies that as a way of making a decision. So I think that saved me, or that helped me make that decision a lot clearer.
I like what you said there. Like, it definitely nullifies the excuses. And it's like that voice in your head that's like, well, what if this goes wrong? Or what if this doesn't work? And what happens if this blows up in your face? And what happens if you're like, man, I wish I took the 35? You know, that all just gets muted when you're like, that's not the best version of me though.
Yeah, 100%. And what's crazy, Dan, is like probably 2 or 3 months after it, I genuinely have not even thought about it, honestly. And that's not to say like, yeah, I actually genuinely have never like ever looked back and thought about like, let's go back to that, or even thought about, oh, let's just exit now. Like, it ended up being a good decision in my opinion. Time will tell, but I think it's been a great decision. I'm not using the objective measure, only purely off the fact that I have had to become a better version of me. I've got more people that I need to motivate, more people I need to have in our team, and also just more decisions I need to make from a product strategy point of view. It has extracted a better version of me, and I love that. I've loved that I've had to do that. So that's already been a win, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, it's been like a gift, even though like no money's been exchanged. It's like that external pressure has been like, holy shit, this is giving me clarity. I feel like it's validated what we're doing. Let's go harder. Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, if they're like a competitor and they're like hoping to like slow you down and buy you out, it's almost like given the opposite effect, which is kind of humorous. Is there any other driving principles that you carry with yourself besides the one where it's like, is this the best version of me? Let's pick that route.
Yeah, I think the other one that I took from it is that it's just, for me, it helped sort of like identify staying true to yourself. So, and it sounds fluffy and vague, but what really helped bubble up to me is like, oh wow, like I do want to make fucking money. I think it's like, in the end of the day, we all want to make cash, but it helped form for me, hey, like, oh great, like you're not just a guy who just wants to do cash grab. You're not just a cash grab entrepreneur. That's interesting, right, Dan? Like, you didn't, because I didn't know. I've never had that money sort of presented to me in a way that would sort of say, oh, blinding lights, let's take it and I'll piss off. So it was really cool to sort of see at that time that like, oh no, like I'm building something because I love it. Like I actually love what I'm doing from a Relume, in regards to Relume. This is like the ultimate job. So I think staying true to yourself, like I don't know how to explain that one, but I think, yeah, identifying what your true passion is, I think is something that was really kind of raised up for me in terms of this whole experience, is that I was able to see the true identity of what I'm actually doing. And that's pretty cool. Like I love building Relume as a company. I freaking love this. I fucking love it so much. Like I love it. I'm obsessed. I cannot stop thinking about this, even probably on this podcast, of what I could be doing right now. I love it like it's my child, and I just want to feel like that. If I'm not working on that every day, I'd be so depressed. So yeah, it's really cool to see, oh wow, this is what I'm meant to do. And I think by staying true to yourself consistently, ignoring people about their opinions of doing this, do that, that's the right way, and just staying true to yourself helps you get closer to your true self and what your identity of like what your passion is, what you love doing.
And I can feel it, man. Like you fucking love, like you're obsessed with it. And it's the same for me. Like when I get home, all I want to do is talk about what's happening here. And on the weekend, I'm like, what am I going to do next week? And it's weird because like I sometimes say some stuff like, I don't care about the money, but then I'm like, I kind of do, like, because I want to have the commercial success and I want to do the rad shit with my family in the future and own property and travel the world and all the rest of it. But it's like, yeah, for me, it's like I've clicked into a gear and I'm like, this is my thing.
Yeah.
And you found your thing. How like when you found it, and what was that moment for you?
Obsession in the sense of like, if you take me 2 hours out to do this, it has to be good enough for me to take me out of what I'm doing with Relume. So I think that you constantly trade time in your head to know, oh, but if I'm doing this, it's going to take me away from doing this. So I feel like when you feel the pain of not being on it and working on it, I feel like my biggest kind of, it's crazy, you know, people live for a weekend, but my biggest, like, I guess pain point is the weekend, because I'm just a little bit jaded as to like what I'm doing. So if I'm not doing my bike ride,
you're living the weekend for the week.
Yeah, it's like, give me Monday, hurry up.
Yeah.
So
at least it's 2 days off.
Yeah, public holiday. Don't remind me of that one. That's gonna freak me out. But yeah, it's just that. So I feel like, yeah, when you're not thinking about the time you invested into something, that's you're working on something that you truly like.
Yeah, and I say this all the time. There's two types of entrepreneurs. There's the one where you talked about, which is they start a company to make money and sell out. And that to me is pretty like boring and like I couldn't think of anything further from like, in my mind, boring, right? And then the second type of entrepreneur is like the type of person who's like, I really want to figure this fucking thing out. Drives me nuts, keeps me up at night, and I want to be the guy or the gal that gets it done. For you, what is that problem or the crux or the thing that you're chasing right now?
I think there's a better way to build a marketing website. I don't know why it sounds like that's I had so many different experiences growing up of building marketing websites myself, being a freelancer, just like playing around with marketing websites. And I think that we have this really cool opportunity to build the best experience of a marketing website from 0 to 1. So yeah, it's yeah, for anyone out there, like your obsession could be as strange and weird as it is, but it's yours. Like so for me, it's building the best marketing websites on the planet. I want to build a platform that does that, and I think that you got to find that niche and just go with it. It's yours.
And then coming back to gut, like in your gut, it sounds like you've really kind of constructed a gauge. And because I look at gut feeling as like an amalgamation of experiences, you know, lessons, learnings, challenges, moments of overcoming and achieving things. It's like you're collecting all these receipts and kind of stacking it into a gut feel. For you, do you feel like your gut and being led by your gut at this point in time is the best thing to do? Yeah,
it's the only thing I've got. Really, like it because it is, like you said, it's the accumulation of all my experiences. So if I don't leverage them properly, then I've just wasted all that time and energy and effort. Obviously, I want to take the best parts. I'm not going to take the parts where I stuffed up. But yeah, I think the gut does that. It pulls out all the good parts that you've experienced in your previous. And I think it's such a shame if you don't lean into that. So that's why I think advisors are great, or getting investors or whatever in your business, but just don't underestimate your gut. Your gut is the reason why you've achieved what you achieve. It's the reason why you're here today, and it's probably going to be the reason why you continue to do the things that you do. So it's a powerful element. It's hard to describe exactly how it functions and works, but you'll know when it does present itself.
And what's your advice to someone whose gut is screaming at them right now and their head is saying, but I'm scared?
Oh, wow. I think for me, it's just like you have time. You have so much time that you don't have to bet the house on it. So if you're scared and you have an idea and you're working whatever you're doing as a job, and there's something that you feel like you got saying, do it. And only you will know that, because you look in the mirror and it keeps fucking telling you.
It's like, do it now.
Yeah, do it now. And it just keeps repeating at your face.
And your brain's like, I'm scared.
Yeah, it's just like, no, I can't. So I think, fine, sure, have that fear. But I think you can eliminate that by just getting things done and working towards that goal incrementally. Just break it down into the most micro baby little steps that you can possibly do within the time frame that you have available to you. And I would guarantee you these things compound. So if you do have only 4 hours a week, then break down your bet or your idea into how you can achieve that within 4 hours a week. But what happens, and it's the magic, is this compounding effect happens. So when you do 4 hours consistently for 4 weeks straight, what ends up happening is like, the momentum kicks in. You're like, I fucking love this. I'm going to chuck in another, like, screw this thing that I was going out to on a Saturday. I'm going out and do another 4 hours. So I've just injected another 4 hours. Now it's 8 hours a week. So the momentum part really helps spur on more time that you invest in it, but you've got to start small. Start incrementally. Don't like say, I want to have this idea. I quit my job and now I did it. And then all of a sudden there's all this pressure and you've just, again, you've just blown yourself up. You haven't capped your downside, right? So cap your downside, stay where you are from a job perspective, but get momentum and get reps in and start to understand if this thing's going to work by just doing it and working on it. And I think that always happens. It's the only way. Like if I've ever been out of the gym or been injured, the only way I can get back into that gym is by going 1 time a week. And then the next week I start telling myself, now you can do 2. So I do 2. And then the next week I go 3. And before I know it, momentum has just kicked in. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm going back to 5-6 days a week. So if you just do bite-sized increments, I guarantee you whatever you have desire, or like whatever thing you have in your head will come to life, but you've got to be persistent. You've got to do it in a way that's attainable. So if it's only 2 hours a week, if you can do that for 4 weeks, just do whatever's attainable and you'll get it.
I think that's amazing sound advice. Just pick the lowest common denominator activity and just start there. And I remember I used to sell gym memberships, and I had this beautiful lady, I can't remember her name, and she was sitting across from the table, me giving her a tour of the gym, and she's like, I'm really scared to like sign up to the gym. There's a lot of intimidating people here. And I'm like, look, I get it, but like, let's just start off with like the most basic activity. Let's sign you up. And she's like, what's the activity? I'm like, literally go buy a pair of nice runners. Go buy your outfit. Do you have a workout attire? She's like, no. I'm like, just now, this afternoon, go to Kmart, like Lululemon, wherever, just buy an outfit and buy a bag and pack your bag. And she's like, I can do that. And I was like, just start there. And then Monday morning, I'll meet you here and you can drive here. We'll have a coffee. We'll talk again. You don't even have to do a workout. You can go home. And she's like, all right, I can do that. Just like, let's make it really simple. And she came in and we sat down, we had a coffee. And she's like, I'm still nervous. I'm like, that's fine. Like, come back next Monday and then I'll show you a couple machines.
Yeah,
and it's just baby steps, man.
Love it.
Sometimes we just get a baby step our way into success.
It honestly is, but I think the thing people hate about or don't like about baby steps is too slow. It's like this slow momentum, but it's training your brain to just be consistent. And consistency really is what gets you today. I'm not any smarter than anyone. I'm not a genius. I'm not by any means got some super education that gives me an advantage. It's just I've just been stupidly persistent. Stupidly. Like it's just ridiculously persistent. And that has nothing to do with intelligence. It's just sticking to it and knowing and chipping away as much as I can every day. And obviously like that compounds over time and it gets you to where you want to get in the long run.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, man. And it reminds me of like the Navy SEALs like tagline or slogan. And it's like slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that.
Well, the Navy has it. We can use it, right? But I think it's like sometimes we just gotta slow down and just like take, and that's better than coming up with a master plan or like trying to theorize like where's the best place to start and how do we completely mitigate risk. It's just like just fucking start and pick a thing.
Just do it. Just have that beginner's mindset, and that will open up opportunities. Because there's no reason why I should have done anything because I have not got the. It's not like I had a mentor who was in tech or in fashion or whatever it is. I just did it and I learned. And the brain is incredible. It does. It learns in ways where you never thought was possible. When you're under, I won't say pressure, but when you've got to get something done, your brain will learn. It'll switch on.
100%. You've shared a lot about your story and kind of how this whole thing came together, and you've mentioned a few times your team. And I always like to understand the dynamics of people's team and like who's around them and kind of who's like their closest allies behind the scenes. And I understand for you, you have a co-founder, and that I believe it's really enriched your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, for sure. Adam, man, we've been together for like 10 years working in both Phoenix, Lumio, and then now Relume. We've got that connection, and it's almost like that for our rugby league fans out there. It's like Billy Slater and Cameron Smith, where they didn't necessarily have to talk, but they knew what they were doing. They could anticipate the next play, and I think that only comes with time, right? So we've been lucky enough and privileged to have spent so much time together, which I think is this like unlocks so much things that and advantages that we've got. New founded or new co-founders who just met at a program don't have. So I think that's one thing. Yeah, privilege. Obviously, I met Adam through my sister. He went to school with my sister. So half luck, half opportunity seized. And I think that's been one of the best things. And obviously then having Slater as well join on pretty early on in the mix. So he came on as soon as we launched Relume Library. And so he's almost come on like a third co-founder. And I think, again, time spent and the more we know for us, the more time we spend with each other, invest really hard in that relationship, the better the outcomes of the entire business, to be honest. So I think that's probably been to me, the most important thing at this whole operation is the dynamics between us three, because that's what allows us to make good decisions and hopefully make good decisions for everyone working at Relume.
And what specific strengths or skills do you believe that Adam and Slater bring to the table that complement your own? Yeah,
I think probably the wildest when it comes to, I guess, risk. But then it's interesting. In different scenarios, they are more wild in risk and I'm more risk averse. So I think what we do really well is that we all have a different balance of risk appetite in whatever opportunity, strategy, product feature, whatever it is. So I think we balance each other really well. Adam obviously has probably one of the best product design or design thinking mind that I know, and Slater from an engineering perspective, like the ability for him to understand that machine, it takes a pretty special person. So both of them obviously have a really great understanding of their fields in design and engineering. And then I think for myself, it's more from a commercialization and operations and leadership. So I think that is the holy trinity, in my opinion. If you're going to start a startup, you want to have someone who's got a commercial background and like wants to just drive and push and make shit happen, someone who has got a great design thinking mind, and someone who's got a great engineering. For tech, obviously there's different fields, but for tech specifically, I think that's the ultimate stack. Obviously some of them can come with two, like there could be a myself who's also an engineer, but we call them unicorns. They're Zuckerbergs. You do find a Zuckerberg, latch onto him. But yeah, I think that having those three things covered in a tech startup is a good way to improved probabilities of success.
And that makes sense for sure. Like having different fields covered and everyone's kind of taking care of different sectors of the business. Totally sound, totally makes sense. But what do you think is the substance between you three as a relationship that makes someone a good co-founder? And if someone's listening to this and they're like, I'm considering having a co-founder, like what are the things that they should probably have in order to thrive for 10 plus years?
Yeah. It's like almost a sibling type feedback where I don't know if you have a brother or sister, you can be...
I do, yeah. I got a little brother.
Yeah, so you can be pretty brutally honest. Personally, I can with my brother.
Oh, you can be brutally honest and they're cool with it.
Yeah.
And they do it back and you still love each other.
It's a different relationship, right? With your siblings, you can say you're an idiot and you can still talk to them in another 30 seconds after and be best friends. So
almost
I think,
like an alternative language.
Yeah, it's that relation. It's almost like a sibling dynamic. So reason being is that you can be really honest and give direct feedback without knowing that Slater Adams is going to feel so upset for the whole day and he's going to be like, get away, Dan, I'm not talking to you for 2 days because you yelled at me or whatever. It's like having that really direct and open dialogue between each other, just that's a given. That comes with time because you need to build trust over time. And I think that's hard to, you can't force that until you get time. So if anyone looking for a co-founder, I think it's just a matter of like, you're going to spend so much time with this person, more than my wife. So you got to be patient, but also just try to also manufacture, trying to manufacture as many experiences together. Try to be in the war room together as much as you can, because that's when you really pressure test each other's sort of gauge. Like someone you could meet, let's say as a co-founder, like, oh, I want to start a company. Okay, Dane, let's start a company. Like, but who the fuck? What happens? Shit hits the fan and we're 10K in the red. The shit's about to blow up. What do you like under pressure? So I think time reveals everything. So it's hard to manufacture though that time. But I think if you do know someone and you are working with someone, the earlier you start together improves the relationship, and that is what allows you to build good companies when you have that direct relationship with each other and also been through the wars together or been through the trenches.
And that's really a great perspective is that sibling dynamic, because I agree with you, and I have it with some of my team members here where we can be really ourselves with each other. And the next day it's like reset. It's like, whatever happened yesterday is yesterday. Let's move on. Like, and it's great because you can just know that person has your back. They're not going to stab you. They're going to hold a grudge. It's not going to get weird, turn into some like alternative, like disdain for that person or whatever. How do you, although like, I'm sure there's moments where there is a robust conversation and there is friction and there is debates. How do you navigate the differences in opinions or approaches with your co-founder?
I think there's, you got to be respectful. I think at the end of the day, I can say you're an idiot. What you did was freaking stupid. You're a spastic. Or I could be like, hey, Dan, what you did there, I don't think it was really good for the business. I think it really fucked us in a way that we probably don't want to do it again. So I think delivery, I've had to personally learn that. Adam and I were really bad in the early days. Like we just literally were like brothers just yelling at each other, and we ended up didn't get a better outcome. So I think I've had to really focus on, yes, you can be as direct, but just delivery, because you actually end up getting a better outcome in the end anyway. So I think that's something that takes a little bit like, just take a breath and then deliver. So that's a bit of training in the back of your mind. But I think that's the most important thing to get your message across. And also just take your time to sort of listen. I've always jumped and said, so you're saying something, and I'll just jump in straight away. So I think that taking that time to just go, again, breathe in and just let them have the 2 minutes of reasoning as to why they've thought this way. You said that you want to do this, but why? What's the real kind of underlying? And it takes a lot of freaking time, but it does end up getting the better outcomes. Like it's amazing, even though I'm like, what you think is so stupid, but I'm like, no, I'm going to ask why. I'm going to go deeper. I'm going to go, okay, so you think that, but why? And then why? And why? So like you just break down the layers. And again, that helps understand a lot of the sort of breaks down that barrier of why someone is thinking that way, but also most importantly, delivering your feedback in a respectful, constructive way can still give that, it can still give what you originally wanted without having to yell.
I think that's a great approach. And we oftentimes work with a lot of like co-founders that run brands, and we're taking them through their brand strategy together, and you can tell there's tension in the room because there's 2 or 3 of them that want to take the brand in 3 different directions. And one of the rules we have in a workshop is like no judgment. Like just let that person have their piece. And you can think about it. It's stupid. You could go red in the face. You could be like punching your fist, but just let them have their moment. And then you'll have your moment. And then the third co-founder will have their moment. And then all the cards are on the table. Now we understand everyone's opinion. Then it's like almost weirdly like the strategy reveals itself organically. Or it's like, is there a fourth? You know what I mean? And it's really quite cathartic and therapeutic. But when you can actually just let people have their moment, like it's so helpful.
Yeah.
And you can totally just like actually listen to them and then have a better way of constructing your feedback rather than jumping in and like arguing.
100%.
Yeah.
But that takes, it's almost
It takes poise. It's not easy.
It takes patience.
Well, that's, with everything you're building, man, you got an immense amount of passion. You're extremely curious, and I just love how much you're all in on this idea. But when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
Just a guy, if you worked with him, he was incredibly motivating, and you just felt inspired to work with him. Like you got a kick out of being out of his presence. He was someone who, motivated, but also, again, come back to my principle, I actually became a better version of myself. So that's how I want to be kind of remembered for. I think that would be awesome if I were to leave that as a mark on the people that I've worked with right now. I think if that's what I can pass on, I think that I've done my job. So I just always love to sort of motivate and lead and get the best version out of the team, because at the end of the day, that's all you should be doing. If you're not getting the best version out of yourself in whatever company you're working at, or for yourself in your own startup, just don't like switch.
I agree with that. And it's like when you're finished with life, like be finished.
Yeah.
Like,
I want to
give
look
it
back
everything.
and not, there's this thing where you look back and you're old and you say, oh, what, like the things that you regretted most were the things you didn't do. So I think that's always just something in the back of my mind. Like I could get hit by a bus after this, right? I could literally die at any moment. So I'm always just, it's something that, like, I think it's a Stoic principle where they use death as a way to like motivate you. So always just don't overthink it. Like you could literally be gone tomorrow. So just do what you need to do today and optimize for just doing what you want and doing what you love, because I think that's what will inevitably make you happiest, right?
Yeah. I have a weird mantra around death. So whenever I do public speaking, I play a mantra in my head and it's like, nothing means anything. Soon you'll be dead anyway. It sounds horrible, but I get behind stage, I get a little nerve-wracked and get the jitters. I'm like, oh, I'm about to speak. Being an introvert, I just get weird. And I just play this mantra in my head and I'm like, who cares? And then I get on stage and I crush it. And it just gets rid of the nerves. Because I think nerves come up a lot in business. And you just have to be like, dude, what is it? It doesn't really matter anyway. I'll be dead soon. So like, just give it your best.
It's weirdly it works, and the Stoics wouldn't have ranted on about this as a whole chapter. I think I read about it where they all wrote about it, because they used it as a function to sort of just like be free. It's all good.
I think realizing your mortality puts things into perspective real quick.
Yeah,
because you're like, this doesn't matter much. I could die soon anyway.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but it works. It does.
So speaking of mantras, what's a quote or a mantra that you've carried with you on your journey that you wished everyone listening to this would immediately implement?
Oh, this is a good one. People tease me and say it's not mine, but I'm going to claim it's mine. Is how you do anything is how you do everything. So I'm a big believer of, if you're going to run up that hill, do it do it with intensity. Do it with a way that it's going to, again, exhaust you and put you through the paces of why you did it. So I think I personally, knowing of who people I work with is also, and who are my personal friends, is like how they do anything is how they do everything. So if they're going to slack off on something here, what is it going to say? What's going to make me think that they're going to slack off when things get harder here? So I use it as a measure to identify who are people that I want to be around with.
True.
So it's a pretty ruthless measure, but look, I'm a big believer in that. If you look at anything that I do it with purpose, and I think it's allowed me to translate that into how I do everything. So if you're going to just leave something on the bench and clean it up, put it there, make it happen. It's a personal thing. I know obviously it doesn't apply to everyone, but I'm a big believer of how you do anything is how you do everything. So it's a way to measure and gauge whether or not they're the type of people I want to be around with.
I agree, and like bring some intensity. Like don't run up that mountain like a bitch. Run up that mountain like fucking Goggins would.
Look, and if you don't want to do that mountain, that's good, but just don't do it half baked.
Yeah.
Don't do it like fucking half of it. But it's okay if you don't do it. It's like, just don't do it half-baked, because then...
Yeah, half-ass it, whole-ass it.
Yeah, so it works. It's if you're going to donuts for breakfast, then who are you going to... that's just not a vibe or a persona that I want to be around or associated with.
And when you wake up in the morning, what's something that gets you fired up? It could be an activity. It could be anything. What gets you pumped for the day?
I think finishing like my first session, I like to train mornings. So I think that kind of gets me G'd up to sort of, no, I did the hard thing first. So anything after that is a little bit more, it's not going to be as hard. So
and what kind of training do you do? Like group training? You just hit the weights? Like what do you do?
Yeah, it's a combination of that. I call it a lighter CrossFit style. It's not CrossFit, but it's just a variation of CrossFit. So that keeps me just moving. It's a group class, combination of weights and functional training, but also just I like doing a lot of running. So I just do, like I was saying, hill runs, long runs, just run. It's just to sort of clear my mind. So what gets me G'd up in the morning is just start off with that training session, and that it always sets a standard for today.
Yeah. What time do you train? Do you like try to get it in early?
I'll aim for about 7.
Yeah.
6:30 wake up call.
Yeah.
Try to go to bed like around 10, wake up 6:30. That's the ultimate sort of like, but I had a kid that kind of threw things off.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it.
But yeah, she was like, "Oh, you got a plan, Dad?" Well, I'm alive, so
I've become like a vampire gym person where it's like I got to hit it later. The kids are in bed and the morning's tough because I work in the US or with US clients.
time zones.
And I got a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, so it's like 11 p.m. training. It
works. Does it put you to sleep better? Does it make you kind of, or do you feel more G'd up after that?
I feel G'd up and I'm like, I could work until 3. Like, I could get some stuff done. I could ride a bike and it's a problem. But I started taking this supplement called Adrenal Switch. It's really good. And it's from a guy I know. His name's Greg Hagland. Shout out Switch Nutrition. They're not sponsoring us, but their products are great. And it turns off like your adrenal receptors or whatever the science is. So when you're in the gym and you're firing like your adrenal glands and you're getting pumped up and wired, it kind of counteracts that without making you, I guess, drowsy or sleepy.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah, and it comes in hot chocolate. It's really fucking good. I've got some here. I'll give it to you. The final question I have for you, man, is what's a door that you need to kick in right now to level up as an entrepreneur?
What are the type of doors?
It could be any kind of door.
Hire more.
Hire more?
Hire more. Be more aggressive.
Be more aggressive.
Back. Yeah, I think the nature of bootstrapping a company is a different psyche. So I just want to just hire more, I think, and that'll get the best version of me.
If you had to pick the first hire, who do you think it would be?
More engineers.
More engineers. Yeah, you just need to get more done quickly.
Yeah, we have ambition. We have a lot of things that we want to build, and it always doesn't necessarily match who we've got. Not to say that who we've got is not good enough, is that we've just got a lot to do. So I think it's always just focusing on hiring more. And whether that's not just engineers, also designers and growth. So yeah, if I want to kick down that door, which will take me to another level, we just got to hire more, and hopefully that translates into more impact for the product. Time will tell.
Well, if there's any evidence that you're the guy that could do it, I've seen it. You're on your way. You're saying no to $35 million offers. And clearly you really love what you do, man. And it's been a pleasure to unpack this today with you and really kind of crawl into your mind and kind of see how you I guess, shape your own perspective around tech and where the future of technology is going.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Appreciate the time.
Appreciate you being here, man. Thanks so much.
It's been good.
We'll have to get you back. I love what we were talking about, and it'd be really fun to dive a bit deeper into some of this stuff.
Sounds good. Call me whenever. I'm in.
Let's schedule it in, man. Let's make it happen.
Done.
Yo, my name's Dane Walker and I am disgustingly obsessed with branding. I had to figure out a way to do branding every single day, so I branded myself. Then I started my agency, RIVYL. And hired a team of branding mavericks hell-bent on creating brands so good that they'll make your competition shit their pants. So here's the thing, you want your brand to go viral and RIVYL makes brands go viral. That's why we're offering you a free 30-minute branding session to get an expert's opinion. If you don't believe me, the proof is in the pudding. Here's what clients have to say about RIVYL.
RIVYL is trusted by brands like Nutrition Warehouse, Light My Bricks, and Vumi.
So if you want to absolutely smoke the competition and make your brand go viral, hit the link below and book in your free 30-minute branding session.